Good evening, or good morning. I don't know, internet's kind of weird. My name is David, and I just wanted to take a few moments and sit by a fire in June. There is a lot going on in the world, and it's really hard to keep up with how much is actually going on. Let that warm up. There's just so many different things, all interacting, and a lot of them are not amazing. Not amazing at all. But there are good things, and before we, talk about not amazing things, because we're going to talk about that, it's going to get a little dark, but we'll talk about some light first. So, as I stated, my name is David. I was a delegate to the Massachusetts delegation for the Massachusetts affiliate to the Libertarian National Convention, and that was interesting. I have no interest whatsoever in talking about the business part. Plenty of people have done that, but I did just want to touch on just the interactions between people outside of the business, and I guess inside too. But it was really interesting, especially you'd walk around and there'd be all sorts of different groups all together, all with that underlying interest in liberty and just being left alone. But to see that many all together, that was pretty cool. I would say anyone that is considering going in the future should do so if you're able to. It's a rewarding experience overall. But a few of the conversations were really interesting because there is a lot going on. There was lots of talk about food in the future, fuel, of course, lots of different social, political interactions and failings. And, man, it's bad news bears. Like, the U.S. is just bankrupt. That's pretty cool. 90 trillion in debt, and then we have 169 trillion in what are they called? Unrealized something, gosh. But $259 trillion in like debt, things that we owe now and things we will have to owe in the future, like pensions and stuff. That's quite a bit. That's like $2 million per taxpayer. Awesome. There's no way to pay that back. We simply don't have enough assets. We don't have manufacturing that the rest of the world wants. We export some things, but we use a lot. We are definitely a consumer nation. So a lot of countries, realize already that we can't pay that back. That's not good for us, because basically what the U.S. government has done is stolen from the entirety of the world. Largest theft in history, especially just the last couple of years with the inflation. That's not just theft of us. That's theft of anyone that holds the U.S. dollar. Made it all worth less. Cool. We just got a huge discount on everything we purchased. They're not pleased. Some probably don't care because they're like, hey, those aircraft carriers, man, those are sweet. But yeah, so they stole from us. They stole from the rest of the world. People are unhappy about that. Russia's been, hey, let's get rid of all the U.S. dollar we can. Lots of other countries trying to get rid of it. Which, U.S. dollar, everyone's all, it's really strong. It's going to be gonna be great. It's fine. This will blow over. Yeah, because it's a reserve currency. But if countries are not using it as a reserve currency, what's its value? What's Why not use gold or a cryptocurrency or rubles? Yeah. And then if that starts to happen, you either get like hyperinflation, which that's happened to a few different countries, fairly recently. Venezuela, not having a good time. If you talk to someone that's actually come from Venezuela, or if you're older than me and you go down to Venezuela, doesn't seem fun. I would love to visit Venezuela, but not anytime soon. I'm going to let that calm down. I just want to enjoy jungles. Man. And, Turkey in just a couple weeks went from 20% inflation, not good, up to 70. That's catastrophic. So we'll see what happens to Turkey. They're thinking about doing an ID so that you can get bread, and if you have that thing, you get a discount or something like that. You use those credits. Hey, bud. So yeah, he's pretty cool. He's very talkative though, so awesome. Where was I? Oh yeah, Turkey with their new digital wallet currency ID thing. I don't remember about that one. But hopefully they don't go like Sri Lanka. Man, that was crazy. That's still crazy. They were hunting down politicians, throwing their cars into rivers, lighting them on fire, lighting their homes on fire, beating them. Jeez. You know what every politician in the world thought when they saw that? Jeez. Oh boy, they are building bunkers. Some of them at least. Probably the smarter ones. Bunkers. The ones that think it might go either way, you're buying things and building a bunker. Because I would want to hide underground if a country's population was very upset with me like that. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But, I mean, debt and the US dollar just tanking, not our only concern. We got food. That is going to be a problem everywhere in the world. Everywhere. To different extents. Like some people, especially in maybe countries like the US, where there's people with money, they'll probably have food. Africa, cool, done. That if they don't get the food they normally get, millions of people will starve to death, and that is the worst way I can think of to go. Just, they are very dependent on everyone else. It'd be great if someone could just like irrigate the Sahara. I don't know. But, and Europe is going to have a big problem. I mean, a land war in Europe is never a great time, so Ukraine, big old bread basket, lots of natural gas coming out of there, or there was. That's not happening anymore. Russia's a big bread basket too. Guess what? They don't want to send people anymore. Wheat. Awesome. But there's, a delay, so maybe fall, and that'll be bad. Or it could be fine. Who knows? But the food here, we should have food. We might not, but we should. We do export quite a bit. We're probably not going to do much of that unless the administration continues on the same path that it's been going on. Every time we're short on something, they send it overseas. Like the Northeast is currently experiencing a fuel shortage because a few years ago we reduced our, I shouldn't really say we, but reduced our capacity to refine oil into what we need around here, different gas blends and stuff. So I think it was cut in half or so. And then this year, war in Ukraine, they need diesel and they need other fuels. So we sent some. I don't, came from the country's reserve, and now that's at the lowest it's been in quite some time. And we send over food, so food is at the lowest it's been in quite some time. And that's just, food's actually been declining year after year for a while. All of our reserves, what we store, it's not actually that much. Oil too. It sounds like a lot, but it's really not. And that's too bad, because if we run out, that's a big problem. Big old strong military, not very useful if you don't have fuel to put in all the vehicles. And with food, we do grow a lot. And normally we grow a lot more than we have been. It's been declining a little bit. Certain farms are getting bigger, smaller farms are just poof, gone. 2020 did not help that situation. It wasn't just restaurants and things around the corner that went out of business. Farms also went out of business. Farming is a very difficult thing to do unless it's already established and running very smoothly. You need to know what you're doing. But we can't grow as much food now as we used to. Like this year, we're not going to have all that big of a harvest. We're short on fertilizer. The weather has not been great to plant. And what we do have is so much more expensive, not just because of inflation, but also shortages. We are shorter on things. The entire world is shorter on fertilizer than they need to be. Europe especially. They might have another French Revolution, and that's how bad Europe might end up being. Man, bad news bears. But with fertilizer, we're short on all types. There was just a train that crashed about a week or so ago, and that was just full of fertilizer. Awesome. And what food we are processing and trying to get to stores, a lot of those, well, I shouldn't say a lot, there's a lot of those plants, but a very concerning number of them lighting on fire. Usually it's one or two a year, like for the past few decades. It's just a couple. That's it. And this year alone, we're at like 20-ish, almost. Weird. And chickens and poultry, ducks and turkeys and things like that. So they are just killing them. Like, shut the barn, turn off the air, and walk away. And just you do that for the whole farm. 5 million birds dead. They suffocate. Cook, basically. All because of bird flu, which isn't particularly dangerous. But that's a trend too. Things that aren't particularly dangerous, let's overreact. I don't understand that mentality. Doesn't seem to help. But lots of food. It's going to be harder to make more food. It's going to be harder to move things around because fuel itself, we're a bit short on. We still have it, but we're a bit short on it. And never mind just fuel, diesel is the lifeblood of the nation. Well, then we put sensors and stuff and a new system that uses DEF, diesel exhaust treatment. And now all the diesel trucks need to have DEF fluid in order to continue driving. They will shut themselves down, put themselves into a limp mode and go like 15 miles an hour until they just stop. And DEF is fertilizer. Neat, right? It's just urea. It's just a fertilizer. But we put it in to the trucks. So if we're already short on fertilizer and we're already short on fuel, if we're also short on the diff, those trucks are going to have a problem. Like, people are going to have to take their whole fleets down and disable those sensors on the trucks that will allow them to. I bet a Volvo tractor trailer, I bet that would be a real pain in the ass to try and get it to do that. They are finicky things. But I'm not a mechanic. I worked around them for a while, and Volvos. Sorry, Volvo, but your trucks are kind of annoying. But those are just, there's a lot of different things that all interact completely. Like, diesel is a huge problem. Diesel and food. Because without those two things, society just stops. And if society stops, all bets are off. Like, the Purge movies would be a pretty good representation of what that could go look like. And I'm not exaggerating. Like, in other countries where that kind of situation has occurred, where society just stops and people just have to do their own thing, a lot of people are not ready for that, and they panic and they become extremely dangerous. Venezuela had some very, very dangerous times. From what I understand, it's a little better now. Still don't want to go there, but better. Bosnia. Man, you want to see what happens when society just stops. Power goes off. You can't do all the things. You don't have the tools you need to do things without electricity. Rough. Anytime, literally nothing is coming in or out of cities, including power and water, it's a living hell, it seems like. And, like, all the things that people argue about right now, like, genders and children and all of that, societal arguments. Just a lot of theory thrown around, like, well, you shouldn't do this because it could do this. It's not real world stuff most of the time. It's mostly esoteric bullshit. Like, none of that matters if the power goes out. None of that matters if the fuel runs out or the food stops getting delivered. Doesn't matter at all. It goes right out the damn window immediately. In Bosnia, women would ensure they could feed their children by exchanging their time for a can of Tunguska, which is like, it's like Spam, but Russian. And that's what happens. Doesn't matter what color your hair is. Doesn't matter if you think someone is a racist. Doesn't matter who they want to sleep with. What matters is if they have food, and if they have water, and if they can not step on someone else's toes. Everyone just, I'm going to be quiet, I'm going to mind my own, and I'm going to try and survive. That's what a lot of people do. But there are a lot of people that don't. And in America, I have a very strong feeling that it would be a lot different than Venezuela or Bosnia or anywhere that went through that kind of societal upheaval. Because in America, there are a lot of guns. A lot. It's way more than any other country. Personally, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's good, because the more individuals that do have guns, the less you have to rely on some outside force to protect your neighborhood. So it is good, but some people seem to have forgotten that, and you can see that right now in areas where gun control is pretty strict and there aren't a significant number of people that are carrying a weapon. Crime is crazy. I mean, you must have seen all the things that are happening in California, in New York. It's just insane. Worse than the 80s in New York right now. I wouldn't want to have to walk around there. I walk around in the woods. There's no other people. It's very safe. But in a city, you can't avoid the people. There's always someone. And when people are there that don't have enough, they become a little savage, a little feral, and they will try and take what you have. It's just, that is a fact of life. And I kind of feel like I'm talking to one of the kids right now. But I think a lot of adults need to hear it because they don't think about it. They don't want to think about it. But it's something that might be the future. We could be like Bosnia. You should be ready for that, just in case. And it's not that hard. It's not that expensive. You should grow some food. I don't care if you have a yard, or if you have a balcony, or you have nothing. Put it near a window. You have a window, right? If not, there are people that can help you. But you should grow some kind of food, because if food gets scarce and you have your own little source of food, you know what, you don't have to worry about nearly as much as other people when your next meal comes from. You can just, I have eggs. I can eat those. They make more than I normally want to eat in a week or in a day, and I can just eat eggs. Like, my whole family right now, we could eat way more eggs than we do. We wouldn't sell them, and we would just eat them. We could do that for quite a while. And it makes what other food stores we have last that much longer. And, I mean, chicken's pretty tasty. If you can get used to the process to process it, pretty good. Chickens are a good idea. Or at least a garden. Grow a bunch of potatoes, grow some peppers, you know, good stuff. Probably not so much kale. Yeah, it doesn't store very well, and cats don't want to eat it. So have chicken. And I think people should be ready, because the food might be a problem. At the very least, it'll be very expensive. Like that, I think, is guaranteed that the price of food is just, it's gonna go up for a while. And at the same time, fuel's gonna go up, and everything is gonna go up. So a good investment right now is something you are guaranteed to need. Food. This is a sales pitch, this whole thing. Sales pitch. Food. It's awesome. Maybe a gun. Calcifer agrees. Get a gun. Assuming you feel safe having a gun. If you're not a safe person, get some training or a different skill, because lots of different skills are going to be useful. There are a lot of people that would have ended it right there. You should have food. Just stack up beans and rice and grow like 5 potatoes and have 75 guns. There are people that do that. I've met a couple. They're not going to make it. But one thing that you can learn from places like Venezuela and Bosnia and places that went through the shit, skills become incredibly valuable. If you know how to grow food, cool. If you know how to work on cars, cool. If you know how to fix clothing, cool. If you know how to hunt, might be cool. Might not be many animals for a while. But skills are very important, and you should probably spend less time playing video games. This is going to get preachy for a second, but just for a little while, instead of playing a video game, maybe learn a new skill. It does not take long at all. I'm sure any adult that is listening to this right now could pick up a Boy Scout merit badge book. They could read that and then act it all out in an afternoon. It's not that hard. You need minimal tools for most of the things. But then you have a new skill. Boy Scouts was great. Send your kids. Just go with them. Go with them. And there's a lot of people, just going to go on and on. Fire's nice and hot. There's a lot of people that seem to glorify like a collapse of society. A lot of it is probably a joke. Probably is. A lot of it is not. You know, I'm someone that I will sporadically talk to pretty much anyone. You know, I meet a new person, I want to get a vibe for them. Be like, are you a good person? No, you're not. Goodbye. But if I find a good person, talk to them longer, it's a good time. That's how you make friends. Pro tip for the autists. Um, but I do talk to a lot of different people, and I've met a lot of people that are probably feds because they said some very sketchy stuff. And some of those people are probably not feds because they said some very unique, sketchy stuff. And I don't think any of them are dangerous at this time. And I do think that there are people out there that are just off the grid. They are learning skills, very different skills than I would choose to learn, but they are learning skills, and they are planning, and they're waiting, and they're just, it's like a different level of prepper, because they're just off grid. They don't have any internet presence. They probably don't have a phone at all. They pay for things in cash, and most of the world doesn't know they exist. But they definitely exist. And with how many different factions there are in America, as we steadily march towards civil war for the last 3 years with no let-up, I think those people are probably peeking their noses out a little bit, and they're probably watching a little more closely. And to all those people that glorify a collapse and joke about it on the internet, you're gonna get killed by those people that have been in a cabin for 20 years. If you start running around pretending to be in some kind of loot crew, those cabin folk, they're gonna be a big problem. A lot of them don't seem to have any desire to really hurt innocent people, but they do seem to have a desire to go after people they do not find innocent. Kind of darker Punisher thing. Which, in the long run, would probably solve some societal problems if the people that got us here succumb to that. I don't really see that happening. Anyway, I really just wanted to talk about the fact that there's a lot going on, and it's moving very quickly, and I think people should be a little more ready for anything than they normally would be. This might not be just a financial hiccup like 2008. It might not be a Great Depression like 1929. It might not be anything we have ever seen. The world is very different than in those past times. Things have accelerated just more and more. And I don't enjoy that thought. I don't think much of anyone does, but I do think it's something to hear, something to listen to, and it's something to think about, because there's more going on than we are aware of. Any one of us, you can't keep up with everything. You'd have to just sit in front of a TV, couple computers, a few cell phones all day and just take everything in, and you still miss stuff. You know, Tim Pool is probably one of the people that gets pretty good, but he's hyper-focused on, like, certain things. So, he misses things. Everyone does. But with how violent things are, like, you don't want to go to a Marshall's in California right now. You might want to get the zoomies, like my cat. You don't want to walk around New York City right now, around Brooklyn. There might just be a gunfight happening. Don't know. You're not supposed to carry a gun in New York City because the government doesn't think you have the right to do so. I think people should ignore that. It's one way to help fix things, is to just stop listening to them. Have a nice national divorce. The states go their separate way. That would be relatively peaceful. But I don't think it's going to be in any specific state or government's control, because it's a global catastrophe. But that's all I have to say. I'm starting to ramble much more than I really intended to. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you think about it. And I hope you learn some kind of new skill. If you need a minute, I'm going to leave the fire on. So I hope that you enjoy it. Good night.